By 2:30 a.m., two Jeep-borne 106mm recoilless guns, RCL guns, from the battalion arrived at Longewala. This was crucial because now the post had some offensive capability against the tanks coming in their way. 22 cavalry and 38 Baluch from the Pakistan side, now taking the lead in capturing Longewala, surrounded the Longewala post by 4 a.m. There were still many hours until sunrise, and the enemy had the Longewala post surrounded. This was the test of the company's resolve against the enemy. The enemy launched the attack and started moving towards the post to capture it. The Indian infantry held their fire until the leading Pakistani tanks had approached 15 to 30 meters before initiating their fire. The Jeep-mounted 106mm RCL guns fired at the enemy and destroyed 2 tanks. The RCL guns, firing from an elevated position, proved quite effective because they were able to engage the thinner top armor of the Pakistani tanks and destroy them. The Pakistan tanks were also carrying a spare fuel tank kept behind the tank turret. These were intended to supplement their internal capacity for the advance to Jaisalmer. And the Indian RCL guns' fire led to explosions in these tanks as well. This lit up the place and provided ample light for the defense to accurately fire at their targets. The enemy tanks stalled or moved very slowly in the soft sand near the post, making them easy targets for the Indian side. The defenders at Longewala scored some initial gains during the start of the assault, but despite these initial gains, the odds still were overwhelming against them. They knew if the enemy column was able to get close to their positions, the defense of the post would become untenable. Squadron B of 22 cavalry and Company B of 38 Baluch slowly closed up to the defenses to mount an attack on the post. Then they suddenly stopped. The infantry soldiers leading the attack discovered the barbed wire surrounding the post. They interpreted this to be a minefield. This was the same barbed wire surrounding the post that was installed by the BSF to keep in their camels. But this fact was unknown to the enemy. They were sustaining continuous and accurate fire from the defenders of Longewala, which made it difficult for the infantry to move forward. This, along with the possibility of a minefield surrounding the post, made the Pakistani column reluctant to launch an attack. Pakistan sappers were then brought in to clear out the area of any minefields. After nearly 2 hours of checking the area, amidst fire from the post, the sappers discovered there were no minefields in that section. 2 crucial hours were wasted by the enemy in clearing out the area. This was a huge relief for the defense at Longewala, because by the time the Pakistan column was ready to launch their attack at Longewala post, it was dawn. The sun was up, and now the Indian reinforcements could arrive in the defense of the previously isolated post at Longewala. 7:30 a.m. December 5th, 1971. While the firefight continued between the enemy column and the defenders at Longewala, a flight of Indian hunters came over and started rocketing and strafing the tanks and infantry that had formed up for the attack. 5 tanks were destroyed, 4 men killed and 4 wounded. The enemy tanks and the infantry dispersed from the post to avoid being attacked. After the hunters departed, tanks and troops of 22 cavalry and 38 Baluch again started forming up to attack the post. This is when the second airstrike of hunters came into the battlefield. They knocked out 6 more tanks and inflicted more casualties on the enemy infantry. At 8 a.m., a tank squadron of AMX tanks reached Longewala post to strengthen the defense. At 9 a.m., 1 squadron of 22 cavalry and 2 companies of 38 Baluch again started to form up to attack the post, but Brigadier Tariq Mir called off the attack and ordered the troops to disperse. Around noon, 22 cavalry and 38 Baluch withdrew some distance to where the rest of the 51 Infantry Brigade was deployed. the hunters kept coming back in waves to attack the enemy positions, and the enemy casualties kept on mounting. Tanks took evasive action by driving around in circles to throw up dust to escape from the relentless hunters, but that also had very little impact on the result. The last air attack from the hunters came an hour before sunset on December 5th. The post at Longewala, meanwhile, also received reinforcements which included an infantry brigade, enough to defend any further attacks from the enemy. The bold plan of a swift penetrative thrust had failed. By the end of the day of December 5th, 1971, the enemy had lost 17 tanks, with 10 men killed in action and 17 wounded. The Indian side had lost 2 men. With extensive damage inflicted on them and poor progress in the movement forward due to the block imposed by the defenders at Longewala, it was evident to GOC of 18 Infantry Division that the ambitious plan of securing Ramgarh Jaisalmer were out of his formation's reach. He therefore chose to limit his operational plans just to the capture of Longewala. He sent orders to Brigadier Tariq Mir to capture Longewala post. But Brigadier Mir declared since an Indian infantry brigade had linked up with Longewala, the post had become too strong for a 51 infantry brigade to capture. The GOC then gave the task to 206 Infantry Brigade. The commander of 206 Infantry Brigade ordered 28 Baluch to advance towards Longewala, but there was mass desertions in the battle, with almost all of the battalion completely disappeared before the attack. Another attempt at Longewala failed. In the meantime, 2 more battalions, 1 and 10 Punjab from the Pakistan side, arrived at the front, and another plan for the attack on Longewala was prepared. 3 a.m. December 6th was chosen as the HR. The 51 Infantry Brigade was ordered to mark the forming up point, provide guides, and detail out 1 squadron of 22 cavalry to give fire support. Brigadier Mir refused to provide any assistance and ordered his brigade to start withdrawing to the international border. Since both brigades were now moving in opposite directions, there was considerable confusion in the formation, and 206 Infantry Brigade failed to launch its planned attack. During the night, 22 Cavalry and 51 Infantry Brigade withdrew back towards the international border. On December 6th, the Indian Air Force hunters continued the air attacks, and Pakistan's casualties continued to mount. Around midday, GOC came over and ordered 206 Infantry Brigade to move forward to the Longewala Jaisalmer road and 51 Infantry Brigade to occupy defenses behind it. But by the afternoon of December 6th, the GOC realized that there was a complete loss of control over the conduct of the battle, and no cohesive and objective-oriented operations were feasible. So he ordered the general withdrawal of his forces across the international border. Between 7th and 11th December, Pakistan's withdrawal across the international border slowly continued. The Indian hunters kept up their attacks on the withdrawing column. On December 11th, Major General Mustafa, GOC 18 Infantry Division, was replaced by Major General Abdul Hamid. With this, Pakistan Army's venture into the Jaisalmer sector had ended up in a crushing defeat and serious losses of men, tanks, and other war materials. Pakistan's losses as counted in the Indian territory were 37 tanks, 200 assorted vehicles and other equipments, and around 200 dead. Losses suffered by the Pakistan force in their own territory could not be ascertained. India lost 2 soldiers in the battle. Although Pakistan Army's operational plan to capture Ramgarh and Jaisalmer with the tank infantry blitzkrieg was bold and brilliant in its tactical concept, it was very poorly planned and executed. The assumption of no air action in the battle proved to be very costly for the Pakistan side. To be fair to the Pakistan side, no planners could have anticipated such a bold and courageous stand at the Longewala post, as was shown by Major Kuldeep Singh Chandpuri and his company of 120 men. Even though the 18th Infantry Division totally failed to achieve its operational objectives and suffered heavy losses, there is relevance in its claim that its Longewala operation forestalled plans of the Indian 12th Infantry Division to advance to Rahim Yar Khan. If India had launched their attacks towards Rahim Yar Khan and achieved its objective of cutting off the supply line connecting Sindh and Punjab, it would have had a significant cascading effect on the Battle of Chamb, Battle of Chicken Neck, and the Battle of Shakargarh. From the Indian operational perspective, Longewala was a closely integrated air-ground operation which could not have achieved such spectacular results without the participation of troops on the ground and the flyers in the air. This was an excellent example of cooperation between troops on the ground and Air Force. Undoubtedly, the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force combined together effectively to win the Battle of Longewala.